All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Again, it is Darren from TenantCube with our monthly webinar. And today I have with me James Fernandez. James is a real estate investor. As you can see, as with a lot of real estate investors, the life never stops. It's, go, 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 especially when you're in something like today's topic where you have already scaled or will be scaling your operation. So I just want to start by thanking everybody for joining us. Of course, we do record these sessions so you can view it later. And if you have any questions, please feel free to hold them or post them now, and we'll take care of them later on. So to kick it off, I'd like to welcome you, James. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I apologize for kind of always being out on the road. This is kind of my whole life, unfortunately, right now, but it's a price I'm willing to pay. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Hopefully what we're talking about can help someone do whatever they want to do or whatever their goals are. And yeah, ready to get into it.
Excellent. Well, and I mean, I think that's a great place to start. Even being able to join us from your car, I think it just kind of speaks to what we're talking about today, is scaling operations. But before we even get there, I'd be curious to understand a little bit about your background, because you haven't always been an investor. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So where it kind of all started for me in terms of investing was I wanted to buy a car that I could not afford without someone paying me to buy it. So that's kind of where it started. I wanted to buy a Tesla Model 3. I found out, like, in a house that I already had purchased, that I lived in to like move out of my mom's basement, basically, that I could rent out a portion of it for a friend for basically the same as the car payment. So that's kind of where that started. After that, I started learning a little bit more about the different strategies to strategically renovate and do refinancing on the house. And when I did the refinance on the first home, it was like $140,000 check that was completely life-changing to me. Realizing the power of that and kind of the potential, that's kind of where I kept going. I was still working full-time as an engineer at that point, but I used that money to buy more properties, which in turn got refinanced after renovations and stuff as well. And then I ended up leaving my job earlier this year, and now I'm doing this full-time. So.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And a lot of the stories I hear, whether it be a small landlord, somebody who's halfway through their journey, or somebody who's fully established, it almost always starts as, I needed X, I needed Y, I needed Z, I needed something done, and it's almost out of necessity that kind of arises. And for you, obviously, it was with the Tesla. But the interesting thing I think you said there was just the increase that you had from the time, obviously, you had purchased your home to the point you refinanced. How long was of a window was that before you kind of it clicked in your head and you made that move?
Yeah, so I purchased the home in about 2016. I was living there. That's kind of it. It's like a 2-bedroom upstairs and a 1-bedroom basement. There was like a kitchenette type of thing in the basement at that time. And the people, I just had a whole house to myself. And I'd gone to this conference, the Ontario Real Estate Conference, in about 2019, like April 2019. And they were talking about Airbnb. And I didn't even know what that was at the time. And they were talking about all the cash flow that they could create by just renting out a portion of their home. And that night I went home and I kind of looked around at how much of the house I was actually using. And it was about, I went from 1 bedroom to the kitchen island to the bathroom, and then I left. I didn't use the dining room table. I didn't use the living room. I didn't use the entire basement. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? This is complete waste. Let's see what this Airbnb thing's about. So I packed all of my stuff, my clothes basically, and then I just threw everything in the basement at that point and tried it on Airbnb. So yeah, it was just kind of going with a thing that I wanted to try and seeing what happened, and it's been going since. So
yeah, well, that's pretty interesting. So you started to expand into Airbnb, and this is something I get a lot of questions about, especially from small landlords who have probably heard the hype about Airbnb, but are
Definitely.
unsure because with the hype also comes the horror stories, right? Whether it be from the municipalities cracking down or from partiers. What's your experience with Airbnb been like as you've scaled your operations?
It's been fantastic. I've had only one minor issue,
Hmm.
but the main thing, just like with your tenants, you're doing screening. Um, the rules are very clearly set out in the app, and I reiterate those rules before the guest checks in to make sure that they fully understand them. And those are like by saying I reiterate them. Those are automated messages that go out at a certain time before check-in. It's pretty hands off. The power of that though is the control. If there's people on the property that you don't want there, if there's damage, there's insurance, if there's whatever, there's always a really good repercussion that we don't have as landlords in Ontario that I really appreciate. I actually rent out my Airbnbs as long-term rentals through the app, and it has been fantastic. So the majority of my clients are typically people who sold their homes, but they don't have possession yet of their new home.
Hmm.
That's my bread and butter clientele. And yeah, that has been absolutely fantastic. They don't have a lot of stuff. It's all in storage or
Right.
whatever. And they usually have a pet, whatever, it's fine. Um, and they're usually between 30 and 60 years old. They're not ruining the place by any means. You know,
Right.
one guy, he's just bored out of his mind because he can't work. And this like kind of retired-ish kind of guy, he
Hmm.
fixed a bunch of stuff. He's just like, I just had
Right.
nothing else. I got these supplies, and I just figured like you'd like this. And yeah, it was fantastic. Like that, it's been good in that sense. On the nightmare scenario, which people always go to, and I feel like focus on instead of taking action. Um, it wasn't even that bad. The guy that I had in there was fantastic, but his ex girlfriend tracked him down using Snapchat Maps, which he forgot to delete her on,
Hmm.
and found him there and thought he was cheating on her, although they're broken up, and he was alone. But anyways, so she's banging on the door, screaming outside, kicking the windows on that are on the lower thing. Nothing got damaged or anything like that for that. And then he like tells her to go away, and she starts beating him up, and he points out that she's on camera. So she decides this is a really good time to destroy the camera. So yeah, he ended up paying for the camera damage and whatever else. But it's just a funny, whatever. At the end of the day, um, the guest was great. The crazy ex girlfriend was not.
Hmm.
Um, but that's fine. So I don't think these types of things should scare people away from taking action because there's always a very easy solution. To most pretty much any problem in real estate just requires a little bit of money. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great story. I usually get in some of these webinars usually a good Airbnb story here and there, and that was a pretty good one. So I'm glad it worked out with nobody getting hurt, I assume, but only the camera. So that's good to hear. But this I think helps to paint a little bit of a better picture about your background and how you kind of got started. And a couple of things that I picked up was that you actually really haven't been in that long, but you have had a lot of success in scaling. And I know with how the market's been lately, a lot of people have wanted to do what you have done, but have been a little bit hesitant. So for those people, who may be here today, who are in that position where they want to take that next step to scale, but maybe they don't have the full picture of where to get started. How do you actually get started on scaling? Like, what types of people should you be talking to? I know you've always been a big fan of networking. So how do you go ahead and how do you get those conversations started? And what types of people should you be talking to? And should you be talking to other people outside of, just whoever you're dealing with for your mortgage?
yeah, for sure. So my first rental property that I ever bought was February 18th, 2020, right before the shit hit the fan for COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
pretty much every single person at that point was really lackadaisical about their COVID preparations in February. Like, I think March is when people started taking it a little bit more seriously. But the real estate market, people were really hesitant to buy anything because they were worried about tenants not paying rent and all this other stuff. And I don't know. In my head, I figured people are still going to need a place to live, and chances are they're going to want to pay if they can. So that's kind of where I was coming from. I was like, whatever. Worst case scenario, I'll just go bankrupt. I'm 30. I'll be 37 when it's all said and done, and I'll start again. But now with knowledge, that's the worst case scenario. Is I lose absolutely everything, and I just don't go in title, and I buy with joint venture partners, or I buy commercial where it's not necessarily me personally securing the asset or something like that. So with that kind of in mind, I bought that first duplex February 18, 2020 for about 200 grand, did a bunch of renos. And this is in like Southwestern Ontario, London, Ontario market. And refinanced it for 400 and got some great tenants in there and just started going again and again. And it was kind of tuning out the people that were telling me no and finding people instead that told me how to do it.
Right.
And if that how wasn't strong enough, then you don't do the deal. But just taking a no as your automatic default, that's garbage. I was the last person to the deal on that deal. Literally everyone walked through that deal. All the wholesalers picked through it, all the realtors, all their clients, everyone. I was like literally the last person. The guy's like begging someone to take this take this deal.
Yeah.
Like ended up negotiating like a lower wholesale fee and all this other stuff. But I took it. Everything went wrong. It got broken into. Tools got robbed. Stuff got stolen. The whole basement had to be gutted because of mold, and I didn't plan for that. Everything went wrong, and I still, like, granted, due to like a lot of luck with the market appreciation and stuff, but I still made money. And even if I had lost a little bit of money, I wouldn't have lost a lot of money there. But even if I had lost a little bit of money, the knowledge coming from that first deal gave me the confidence to do every other deal. So it's worth 10, 20, 50 grand. It doesn't even matter. And people don't think of it like that. I see a lot of comments on my Instagram when I post, like I was talking about kicking out a prostitute today who's door knocking on my doors, kicking out these random substance users that decide to use like my laundry room or whatever, the common areas as a place to hang out. Dealing with like the break-ins on a different unit. They're like, how can you deal with this? How can you even go inside that building? That's a question. And my question to you in retort would be, if I paid you $10, would you go in there? Probably not. What if it was $10,000? What if it was $100,000 to go inside? You would probably freaking do it.
Right. Yeah, great point.
$100,000.
Yeah.
And now that's what you have to like. That's how I reframe my thinking. I chose these problems because they're paying me extremely well to solve them. And that's what I want to do. I want to solve problems that no one else wants to solve. But I want to get paid well to do it. I'm not going to do it if I'm not going to get paid well.
Right.
So for the people that are like kind of on the fence about what to do or why, just find a problem that you want to solve that no one else wants to solve, and you'll make money doing it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's maybe not even just some a good real estate advice, some good life advice as well when you encounter no's. And so let me ask you then, did you find that you encountered a lot of no's when you were first getting started? Did maybe people not take you seriously, or what did you encounter with respect to no's early on?
So yeah, I just wanted to talk, like you had kind of asked about who I was networking with and who I talked to about like kind of going to scale. I talked to everyone. A lot of no's came from the bank initially. One of the things that I learned very early on is banks don't like financing crack houses,
Right.
especially vacant crack houses that get broken into. So I had to, if the bank's saying no, then who's going to say yes? Well, it's going to be private lenders. Private lenders are going to say yes because they don't care. They know you'll pay through one way or another, or they'll take the property and make a profit on it. They're lending at a decent enough price range that they'll make money. So that's one no I encountered. Another no was supply chain issues from COVID and stuff. And it's just find different suppliers, find different loopholes, find different materials to use, whatever it is. There's always going to be someone that tells you no, but in real estate, the main thing that I've learned is there's no such thing as no. It is always who can solve this problem for me or help me solve this problem.